I think it was June, I got an email saying, hey, we're planning for next year. We've got the community sessions. Would you be able to talk with us? I said, absolutely. And you blink your eye and now we're in October. So glad to be here. But a little bit about SPA. It's just an awesome group. Faithful, dedicated volunteers. And even if you're not an officer in SPA,
room proctors, if you didn't already, you should now have access to your test day toolkit, so you should have access to the room code and the proctor script if you did not already. If you do not, please send me a Google chat.
As Mr. Gertz, and we have PSAT going on. We have the seniors doing some activities, following up from their retreat. Kona Ice later. Again, another SPA-related opportunity. And lunch for faculty and staff. So if you are, and many of you here, if you're part of our SPA organization, please stand and be recognized. Welcome, plenty of seats. Just like church, there's room up front. You're welcome. But I really appreciate you guys. And when I first came here, they were called principal coffees. We still were in the midst of COVID, and we had people attending virtually. And I think I've been sitting over there, maybe one of the first ones, and Dr. Garcia was the principal, and we had people in front of us, and he was trying to talk to a monitor and the rest of that. So we appreciate having people here in person. Susan Layali is recording this so that we can post it at some point. And then the slide presentation we'll post also. There's several things in here I call spaghetti on the wall, kind of original pictures and some brainstorming thoughts and ideas. So when we put this stuff out, it's just kind of a snapshot of what we talked about, not meant to be taken and run with and saying this is the exact plan or the things we're doing, but sometimes it's helpful to have a visual. So, but the overview, again, welcome, and we'll do a prayer in a minute. Do highlights of the Build the Future strategic plan. Being president of these two schools, Holy Family had a State of the School presentation that was right before their annual week of giving. Talked a lot about budgetary items, and we had a wonderful video from the chairs over there, and then Mrs. Vu and I spoke. But I think it's important to walk through the strategic plan so you can see that and kind of the main pillars, not going over every detail of it, but to keep it in front of us as we do the work we're doing. And we'll talk about the athletic fields lighting project. You probably have never heard of that before, except for the last 4 years and maybe 5 years before that. So I'll give you an update on that, where we're at. And then there's tangent things that go with that, other projects, and again, I'll talk about what we'll be doing to look at those things. And then visioning the future. Obviously, as a school, we are growing. When I came here, we had 398 students, and this year we're at 440. But I'll show, one of the slides I'll show will be of the original drawings. They had phases of growth for the school, looking at a starting number and going up past 700. So I want to show you a snapshot of that original plan so you can kind of see what was thought about years ago, where we're at now, and then a sneak peek into what we would be looking at doing down the road. There's no capital campaign going on this year, maybe not in the near future, but we have to look forward and lean ahead to that. We'll talk about that, and then a couple other items for that. So if you join me in prayer, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, for each day. Thank you for the people in attendance. We pray for those that couldn't join us. As we walked in here, we all had thoughts and blessings and needs and burdens, so I ask that they are comforted, whether it's for yourself or family members, fighting health issues, emotional issues, financial issues, or faith issues. Be with them, Lord. Be with us as we walk that road with them, because everything's important, but there's nothing more important than our family, our friends, and our faith, and of course the Savio, our students. Guide our meeting today, and we pray that everything goes well today at school and then over the weekend with all the activities going on in the Austin area. And again, Lord, help us balance our appreciation for blessings with our desire to be and do better. We offer this to you through your Son. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Dominic Savio.
Pray for us.
Okay, now Gina's here. We can get started. Hi, Gina. How you doing?
Cheers.
I've never had a cup of coffee, so Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew, and Coke were my college drinks. So build the future strategic plan. We have 8 pillars: governance, structure, and leadership, enhance administrative leadership, governance efficiency, and interinstitutional collaboration. So in that pillar, it talks a lot about our governing board. It talks about building a strategic plan. It talks about collaboration with Holy Family. And then the latest update, it talked about a couple of items. One is getting more information about the educational savings accounts, now called the freedom accounts, and who knows how else they'll change it. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that, but I want to throw that out there. Part of our goal that we put in the plan last spring was to learn more about it, to work with the diocese, parishes, to get the word out about it, and then what will that mean for us? Right now, we don't know what it'll mean for us. We're not budgeting for it. I think it will take a couple years to see how that filters out, having come from Ohio.
Teachers, when your room is ready, you may test. If it's still giving you error codes, let me deal with it.
So we pause when the Holy Spirit speaks to us, or Mr. Gertz over the PA. So that's one of the things. And the other item we put in there was to welcome, and at that time we didn't know who the new bishop would be. So obviously Bishop Danny has been named and already involved with many things across the diocese, including with the Catholic schools. So that's another, we want to build that relationship with him. He had been from here, but it's been a while since he's been here. And we definitely want to make sure that he knows what our school is now and also be part of that forward lean. Anything that's a major project, from the lighting project or capital improvements or anything like that, ultimately he has to sign off on. So we want to build a relationship with him, get him not just showing up for school masses or baccalaureate, but to really be part of our family, as busy as he is. So looking forward to that. We do have a couple positions still open, the Board of Advisors. We have some candidates that have been brought forward, meeting with them. It's around 11-member group. It cannot be more than half. It cannot be a parent or grandparent. And so that's part of it. Myself, Father Tom, Misty Pohl, and representative from the diocesan office are part of that group also. Another thing with that, and we talk about the structure and leadership, is that the different committees, and so for each of these pillars, there's a committee or something associated with it. I've expanded that out and said, we've got Board of Advisors in any Catholic school. They get overloaded with everything. I don't want them sitting on 5 different committees. You get tired, you kind of just go through the motions, and you don't get other ideas, eyes, ears, and ideas from other people. So with some of the committees, we've added people. For example, the Advancement Committee, Facilities and Grounds Committee, and some other committees. We want other people to be part of that and be part of that work. So that is growing. And when I came here, there wasn't any of that linkage, so we're expanding that, and it's been fruitful even so far this year. Financial management and sustainability. Basically, that's saying no matter if there's ESAs or freedom accounts or what the government does or anything else, what are our plans for being able to sustain the school? The school still has a loan from the original building project. Holy Family still has a loan. They combined, they had their building projects, and then they added on to the Savio loan when they had to do more projects. So we switched the financing of that. The diocese holds on to that, and we pay that. So that's a multi-year loan, just like you do with a house. So we're working on that. But in addition to that, for this school, we're looking at our stewardship, and we're looking at our what we call reserves. So if you think of a budget like this, we're trying to turn it sideways. We haven't done that before. When people say like a 3, 4, 5-year forecast, we want to have a long-range forecast and look at some key things. So enrollment is one of those. Salary and wages, one of those. Tuition, one of those. Subsidies, tuition assistance, that's part of that too. Facilities and grounds, all those major things that when something happens, just like your own budget, you want to try to prepare for that and plan for that and have a good idea of, okay, where do we need to save funds? It's not like we're sitting on all these extra funds. We get no funds really from the state, we get no funds really from the diocese, and we really get no funds from the government. So it's all generated from tuition, from being good managers of the funds, from all the advancement that goes on. So we want to kind of start leaning forward more instead of going, July through June every year. So the Finance Committee is doing a great job working with Lon, our business manager, on that and kind of projecting out with that. Advancement and fund development, Gina, you have 15 minutes. No, I'm kidding. Gina, again, with that, the advancement fund and looking at that, you've got the main activities that go on, the rest of that, but it also includes people that want to give a specific donation. As we talk a little bit more about some of those projects, if someone says, here's the project, we want to say, here's the project, here's the cost, here's the timeline, do you want to give? That's part of advancement. We want to meet and talk to people that want to do a legacy gift. We have an endowment here that no one knows about. We created one next door. Last year, but we have one here, but we haven't really promoted it or pushed it or had conversations with people. So we're trying to get more of those conversations going on. The gentleman that's giving $100,000 for the lighting project, he has no skin in the game. He wants to support our school. So that's a legacy type gift that he wants to give. So we want to have those conversations and relationships with people that want to support the school and wherever their heart is drawn to. Catholic mission, identity and culture, it probably should be the first one, but it's what we're about. We are a Catholic school. We will not water down our name. With all respect to other Catholic schools that want to be called academies or preps or something else, or other faith-based schools, we wish them all well, but we are a Catholic school. Not to the point that we don't welcome other people. Not to the point that being Catholic automatically means that you're here. We are all sinners, we are all broken, we are all children of God. And so we model that, but we immerse with the faith in everything that we do. So again, another committee that's part of that, and we want to look at faith-centered environment, identity, community, collaboration, and I would say evangelization too. We are called to do that. We're called to tell the story, to bring ourselves and others closer to God, to Christ. Academic excellence. Again, advanced academic performance, curriculum alignment, staff development, use of technology. Another piece that's not in there is student support services. So this is the second year that we've hired a full-time person. Last year we started it. It kind of took a while for that to kind of figure out what that meant. It's a little different than at a grade school, but we've got many students that come here on some kind of support plan. IEPs and 504 plans don't have any accountability or bear any weight when someone comes to a Catholic school. There's no funding for that either. But as a Catholic school, one that believes in the whole child and everyone is a child of God, we made it part of our priority to add that staff member. So Erin Heinmarch is the new person, and we shifted it kind of more case management to look at the plans, to meet. Some of you may have already met with her or will be, but to look at those plans, because a lot of them were just, let's throw everything in there that might be needed. And it was hard to monitor that, to know how to serve that, to see if a kid doesn't need to have an hour and a half for every test. Let's kind of look at that and get the students involved. Because ultimately, when they graduate from here and they go somewhere else, they need to advocate for themselves. Mom and dad have no authority when they go to college other than the ones you impose on them. They need to know what they need. They need to go to the student centers. They need to be able to say, here's what I use, here's what I need, or here's what I don't need. So that's an important area to me personally and professionally. Again, growing up with two siblings with special needs, and the first part of my career was working in public schools, services for the kids with multiple disabilities to the gifted. So I think that's really, come on in guys. We'll start again with the prayer and then, no, I'm kidding. Please, have a seat, have a seat. You've been praying. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry, you got to be stuck here listening to Mr. Cullen. I apologize. I apologize. Right now. Do you drink coffee? There's coffee. I don't know what else you got. I can't share my Dr. Pepper. No, good to see you. So all of that ties together because academic excellence is not being the top student, maybe. It's not passing all your AP classes, maybe. It's more than that. The excellence is that when someone leaves here, when they walk across that stage with that diploma, they know where they're going next, they know what that means, and hopefully they've learned how to get the most out of themselves. That's what you want, that's what we want. Student activities and programs, again, increased student engagement through athletics, clubs, and innovative initiatives. That's an area that yesterday was one of the parent information sessions. And Mr. Vu put the slide up there with all these clubs and programs and the rest of that. It can be overwhelming, and as you sit here too, whether you've got a freshman or you've got your fourth kid going through the school, whatever, there's lots of stuff there, lots of choices. But we want them to be quality clubs and something they can learn and grow with and provide that. You don't have to be a large school to offer options. Sometimes large schools have lots of options, but they don't have that engagement, right? And so we hear that time and time again. When Holly has the students speak, they'll talk about that, where they came from, or that they found their people here, or they tried a new club, or they took a class that they didn't think they ever could take, but because of the interaction with the faculty and staff and classmates and the house system, that they felt welcomed, and that's what we want to have here for them. Also, student activities and programs, again, we got athletics, but it's the arts and everything else. All that ties together beyond the grade point average. Facilities, grounds, and beautification. We've got beautification in there. Everyone has their own definition of what that means. But that's something where when people do come here, they visit, they will talk about how they like the trees and the campus and the rest of that. And that's part of it. We want it to look clean. We want it to be nice. Even when we have projects going on, we want to keep everyone safe. But then the functionality, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Everything from parking to other things that as we grow, we want to make sure that we're trying to meet those needs. Communication and marketing, again, boost the internal and external communication, strategic planning, and consistent branding. Each of these pillars, again, has a committee. They have specific strategies. We don't list them all in that strategic plan, but we hit the key ones that are in there and we give those updates. I think it was September 5th. You should have received the last update. You should be getting them. If not, let us know. Hopefully you're reading them, and I won't ask you to raise your hands and I won't look in your eyes. It's kind of like, did you read the bulletin? Okay. But we put that information in there because we don't list all the details, but when you read that and if something, you have a question, you want clarity, or you have thoughts and ideas, then just reach out. Reach out, say, I'd like to talk to you some more about this. We put it out there just like we do the Eagle Update, just like SPOT does with their information too. Please read it, and you can discern for yourself if it's something you want to learn more about, if you want to jump in and volunteer, or you want to be part of it, or just clarification, what does that mean for you and your kid? For your kid, what does that mean for your specific child? But when I came here, we had stuff going out, but through a lot of hard work and a nice cadence that we have, and we've added help for Susan in her office. Again, she's doing the same thing for both campuses. Those quarterly magazines, pushing those out there. We can't fit everything in there. It's kind of hard to pick and choose. The first magazines that went out, we heard lovely feedback from people saying, well, what about this club? We get that, we appreciate that. That meant people are reading it and they want to see the story about their kids, their programs, their teachers, and we try to get some alumni information in there too. So we push a lot of stuff out there. We try not to inundate you. When I came here, it seemed like we were pushing a lot of stuff out on Sunday nights. And I got a lot of feedback about that. They're going to email Sunday night that something's happening at 7:30 the next day. So I think we've gotten a little better with that. But whether it's parent conferences or other things that we have, reach out. If you need to connect with your teachers or your team of teachers for your son or daughter, reach out to them. Set up a time to meet. Just because it's on our calendar, here's the time to do that, that's a place marker. But I challenge you and welcome you to, again, reach out, talk to the teachers directly or administration or anyone else. It's easier to have those conversations and can get even more specific when you're having those one-on-one or small group opportunities. So last year we started sending out the updates. One went out at the end of the school year. The one that came out in September, I think it was from May 9th through the end of August. We're expecting that the next update will come out before Thanksgiving break. And again, it'll be a continuation of from the end of August to that point in time with the projects and things that are going on. And I don't know if Susan's still here. And I believe they're being posted on the website. So if you want to go look back at that, they're kind of archived on there. Oh, there she is. Hi, Susan. So check those out, and if you were to line them up in order, they should kind of connect and make sense. Okay. We doing okay? All right. Some focus areas. Everything in the plan is important. Again, the plan is a compass. It's a guide. It doesn't list all the details for each one of those pillars. There's committees and hard work and reports and a lot of stuff that goes into that. We try to summarize it and condense it with the key points for each of those areas, but let me walk through some of these. So board composition committees, I touched base on that. We want the board to be full. If someone is added onto the board, their name goes through the board committee. It's recommended to the bishop. The bishop approves. Part of that process is we try to see how their skills fit needs that we have. They have to be in good standing with their parish. And finally, they get approved. There hasn't been anyone we've submitted that hasn't been approved so far. But we don't expect that to be a problem. But we want to have that full board committee because, again, it allows us to have, again, just different thoughts, ideas, and collaboration. The board, the way it works is you get assigned a 3-year term. Now, sometimes people leave. Dan Cook was on the Savio board. Great guy, great family. His wife taught next door. Kids went through here. And for some reason, he thought it would be great to be the facilities guy at the University of Notre Dame. I don't know. He's a great guy. Loves that place as many of us do. But it was tough to see him leave because he just was part of that initial facilities and grounds discussion, and great guy. So you have the opportunity then, when you're on the board, after that 3-year, that you can go again another 3-year term. And for those that really have a strong passion, desire, they just want to be in the middle of that stuff, you can do a third 3-year term. Then after that, you need to take a break. If you decide you're interested and there's a spot, after a year you can come back again. Jerry Suva, some of you may or may not know Jerry, but he had done those 3 years, 3 consecutive 3-year terms, and then he stayed on for another year. And again, we've got a lot of people in the short history of the school that have been part of the work. And so I send him updates specific about facilities and grounds because that was a key area. And then the committee. So as you look over the strategic plan, if there's an area you're interested in, and I'll talk a little bit today about ad hoc committee for some facility things, send me an email. We can talk about it. I don't want a committee that's an audience. We need to have a committee that is interested and get information and provide some feedback and support and to tell the story. Collaboration opportunities with Holy Family Catholic School. So one of those things that we put in place is when we created and redesigned the position for athletics, there has been no strategic plan for athletics at either of the schools. There's been great ideas and enthusiasm and conversations and all that kind of stuff, but there really hasn't been a plan for that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that we can be subject to change or we can be part of it. And we've kind of been subject to change in several areas. So again, we'll talk some more about that. But we collaborate with them. Girls basketball uses their gym. Their PE uses our gym. The fields that we have, we share them. When we look forward and do projects to advance and enhance our school here, we will reach out to families next door. And we'll reach out to other Catholic schools too, but because of access and proximity and the shared resources that we have, we want people next door to say, if my kid goes to Savio, they're going to benefit from this because, and I helped with it to some extent. I will say, even though this is a Savio state of the school, working with Mr. Evans, our athletic director, director of athletics, to meet with Mary Jo. And one of the things we're looking at is the gym next door. Again, it was planned the way it was planned. I guess there used to be a climbing wall there, and they got these offices there. But that's an area that we were looking at and trying to come up with a plan of how to rejuvenate it, transform it, to make it more suitable for athletics, especially middle school athletics. I'll share that information with you guys too, because that's another space that we can use and we want to enhance what's going on there. That doesn't happen if the director of athletics isn't in that position and meeting with Mary Jo and Mrs. Vu next door. Long-range financial forecasting and planning, I talked about that a little bit. We want to look at those things when our school is healthy. Our high school and our grade school is the largest Catholic grade school in the diocese. Our high school is near there. You can count a kid here or there. St. Michael's would be the other one, but we are the biggest game entity in town when you talk about Catholic schools. So we want to look at all those things and try to map some things out. Obviously, the next one, endowment growth. As our endowment grows, and everything that's given to that matters. Every dollar matters. But for an endowment truly to have the biggest impact, you need millions. And you need to really feed that so that that teeter-totter of 4% from the endowment does not cover the over $700,000 we give each year to families for tuition assistance. But when you get to that level and it balances out, then you can start taking some of that tuition assistant money and you can put it towards facilities and grounds and other things. So that's a decades-long process, but we need to name it, talk about it, and again, have those conversations. Some people, they want to give, and in my 4 years, now in my 5th year, I think there's at least 3 or 4 people I've met that have no skin in the game here, that have heard our story, they want to support it, and they've given to the annual fund, given to some specific projects, and so they want to support Catholic schools. Evangelization within and beyond our community, again, within our group, within our families, across the parking lot, with the other schools. Holly goes and meets students at other schools that come and shadow. We want those parents to learn more about this school. I think yesterday, Holly, we probably had parents from Holy Family, but also 2 or 3, 4 other schools, right? Okay. That are hearing about us, right? You tell that story. You don't have to know all the details of the story, but tell that story. And again, when the students come up here and they give their testimonial, it's powerful. And they all have their own styles and their own ways of doing that. But it's more meaningful than us because we're here. We want to increase enrollment. We want people to come and love our school as much as we do. But when the students speak to that, it always is more powerful. Student support services, again. We have the case manager. She will work with the students. It's different than elementary. At this stage and age, we're not doing a lot of remediation. We're just trying to build supports, work with the teachers, make sure that the adjustments, support plans are happening. But it goes beyond the academic. There's medical needs, there's socio-emotional needs, and other needs that we want to wrap our arms around. So Erin will work with Mendy and Cece, and they kind of all work together as a team. Because we've talked before, as the kids get older and they start feeling that pressure about where am I going after high school, as you as parents feel that pressure too, we want to really map things out and find the right fit and go through all the things that they need to apply to and hopefully be accepted by the school of their choice. Again, innovative opportunities with athletics and the arts. In this area, maybe the past few years there's been discussion about the football program. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. I've heard there's been some of that discussion. Now, and I'll tell my Ohio story. So I grew up in Ohio. I went to a small Catholic school, over 100 years old. And all I knew there was we played against anyone our size. We played public schools. And we played Catholic schools and public schools bigger than us. So we had a conference, right? And so you fought to win the conference. But in Ohio, they had a computer ranking program. Now, I graduated in '81, they had it there in the early '70s, so it's a long time ago. I grew up in that system, that whoever you played, if you beat them, you wanted them to win games because you got more points if they had a good season, right? Kind of like Notre Dame's trying to do now. Rooting for A&M, and I hate rooting for Miami, but anyway, because the more they win, but then Notre Dame's going to win out. So that's a system I knew. Coming here and seeing the separate entities with TAPS and the rest of that, I don't understand a lot of it. So we are assigned where we need to be for that. And I don't want to go into a lot of details here, but it's time for us to, again, be proactive. You can be subject to change or you can impact it. So within the next 2 weeks, requesting a meeting with Mr. Penzick, Mr. Evans, and then Coach Brown. I want us to sit down and say, where are we at and where are we going? TAPS will come out soon, shortly, and say, here's where people are assigned. They can do that. And even if they assign us to 5 instead of 6 or whatever, I think we got to think beyond that. And look, is there a better option for this school and for our student athletes? Football is always, of all the sports, always the one that is the big bear in the woods. The other sports are important too, but our coaches and our student athletes in other sports have shown and demonstrated they can compete, whether individually or part of a team, and be successful in a higher division. But football is the one that can be the most impactful because of numbers, attrition, and the rest of that. So we're going to meet and sit down. And all I can say at this point is, if TAPS can't give us what we want, and what we had before, which was kind of TAPS, kind of independent school, and separate from how many yards we gained the rest of that, but that didn't give us what we want, why can't we find something in between? Why can't we find something in between? I am learning that there's other schools and other football programs out there, they're not happy with TAPS, or they're looking for something different too. So after that meeting, and we look at that, because I don't assume that TAPS will let us form our own independent school conference. They may say, no, you can't leave the fold, but it doesn't hurt to check into that. To say, no, you got to be in here, or all your other sports can't be in there. So we're going to look at all those options, but I always have seen that there's a way if you get with other like-minded people and come up with an option, but we need to. We can't sit back anymore, and without us getting defensive, or our kids getting upset, or parents getting upset, or a coach who's a great coach feeling bad that his kids are busting their tails and not seeing the success that they should. So that's coming up within a couple of weeks. We need to come up with a third option. And if that means we're part of a new league or a conference and we only have 6 games in this, I don't know. So you don't quote me on any of this, but I want to be honest with you guys that sometimes you're going to start something new and build it from there. Because right now, the option we had before and the option we have now, I don't think is us. We haven't found our fit yet. So that's coming up. So that'll be coming up. In addition with that, and I don't think it's part of the, you don't have Mr. Evans scheduled to speak, do you? Next month? Perfect. All right. Mr. Evans, you got a month to get the overall athletic department plan ready. But I want him to speak to you guys, and at that meeting, he can give an update as best he can. You know, this isn't national security, confidential stuff, but I want him to give you an update of where we're at with that, but also the overall arch of the program, and look at what we're talking about. And some of that we'll get into specific projects connected to the athletic fields, the weight room, and some other things. And then, of course, with the arts, we participate in our first one-act play. I have been part of the Holy Family ones. I wasn't able to join them. My understanding is that there were only 5 schools in the district, but they were all top-notch. Not that the ones at Holy Family weren't, but you saw for yourselves, right?
Savio.
Yeah,
Savio.
and you saw the other schools, so it's good. It's good for the kids, and they had a short time frame. What you find out with something like that, even though they say, well, you don't start practicing until school starts, you know how that goes. The other schools probably picked other people in the spring, so now that we know the game, but the kids, it was a great show. I saw the preview of it, and for us to have individual students recognized for their performances, when you have dozens and dozens of students all together, kudos to them. It's like an individual swimmer or track athlete or someone else placing and showing their excellence. Even if, we always want first place, but it was a great start. And I'm excited about what they'll come up with for the spring musical, so stay tuned to that. But it's great to have that, you know, and Miss Soto over here for the band concert that I wish more people would come to, including faculty and staff. It's a great performance. And to hear the chorus, the choral group sing, it was beautiful. So we're putting those things in place, and that will just strengthen the arts across the board. Now, facilities, grounds, and beautification projects and budgets, we'll talk about that. We'll start off with looking at the lighting project. You guys doing okay? I will have time for questions afterwards. The ones I can't answer, we'll have the robot. Now, this has been sitting here, and I haven't heard it do anything or see it do anything, so, but if it turns its head towards you, watch out. iRobot, remember that? It was like a long time ago. Scary now. Okay, here we go. St. Dominic Savio Athletic Fields Lighting Project Update, that's a lot. Studio 1619, they were the original group that was contracted to come up with a design. Some people have referenced it as the master plan. It was a design for the school and created plans for future projects connected to athletics, including across the street, this open air rec center type thing with golf and lots of other things. The outline of the plan was put on hold several years ago. So the plan was there, had a lot of stuff, including lighting and a lot of other structures, and it was put on hold. So when I came here and I checked the information, some of you have been hearing me say this for so, the number one thing that people said was we need to have lighting for our fields. And that still continues to be number one. We brought them back in to review the designs, and WGI is an electrical firm. They were the original ones. The original guy was part of that. He came back on board. He left to take another job, so there's a little delay there, working with the new people there. But we looked at the original plans, and we said the most prudent thing to do is to boil away all those other things. Because if they don't accept the whole plan, and you have a timeline where you get the permit, you know, adding some of the structures could take longer than that timeline, and it becomes more cumbersome. So we said, let's boil that down specifically to lighting, and I'll talk a little bit more about, with lighting, it's like, where do you put the lights? So we've made some adjustments with that too. Following slides represent what's been generated and submitted for permitting for the electrical project only. So this was kind of the original drawing. You can see softball, baseball, and really more designed for a soccer field, but we will be using it for soccer and football. Soccer practices and actually has competitive games there. Football currently only uses it for practice. And again, the field is used by other clubs and groups at both campuses. So that was the original drawing. It looks scary, doesn't it? Like the top left. This is not from Ghostbusters. This is a photometric snapshot of what, of the map of what the lighting will be. Because when I came here, I was told there's no way we can do this. The homeowner association, the neighborhood won't approve it. I did some checking, and with some wonderful people on the board and committee, we realized they don't have to approve it. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing as far as being good neighbors. So that, you look at that, and yeah, it's kind of scary looking, but you can see the imprint of that. The next picture, you can digest that a little bit more. Again, it's not perfect, but you can see with the design of the lighting, and here's the analysis of what it should look like. There will be very few times, if ever, that all three fields will be lit at the same time. Take your picture. Put it everywhere. Draft. So you can kind of see that we have to, keep legacy trees. We still have to keep canopy in that, which had discussion with someone that said, well, all these companies, they can get rid of trees and stuff. Yeah, they must know how to pay more money to get things approved. I'm not sure, but with the footprint that we currently have there, so that kind of gives you a sense of what the lighting would look like. And I'll talk a little bit more about the schedule of lighting, and that's part of our conversation with homeowners, but that kind of gives you a snapshot there. And so this is an updated plan, looking at dimensions. Obviously, they'd run conduit out to feed softball, baseball, and then football, soccer. And yes, if you have good vision and you're looking here, the original plan was a diagonal, big stadium. It just doesn't fit. It just didn't fit. And then the next design had just lighting for football and soccer. We pushed a little bit on that. So by pushing the lights back and having them 70 feet tall instead of 60 feet, the designer said you could put in a 4-lane track. Now some people say, well, a 4-lane track, what about an 8? If we can get a track around a football, soccer field, that's a win, guys. It's a win. So the current plan that's been submitted to the Austin, it should be simple. It's not. So it's been reviewed. The asbestos people have to review it, even though there's no asbestos connected with this, and everything else. So the plan that I think is being submitted today, Evan, I don't think you were included on the email I got last night, but the designer sent it back to the coordinator with Studio 1619. The design is put lighting so that will allow us to expand a little bit, widen some, the football, soccer field, including having an area designed to have a track there. Does that mean a track's going to be put in there the day after the lighting goes up? No. That's some more of those discussions we're talking about, but we want to plan for that. But I did talk to someone, they said, well, if it's not 8-lane track, what about years down the road? Well, years down the road, we'll know more. We might be able to do something across the street. We might be able to do some other things, but to have a 4-lane track for relays, sprints, practices, and the rest of that, that will meet the needs of our track and field, cross-country teams at both campuses. As I said before, Round Rock schools, they passed 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 bond levies. The one that didn't pass was to add athletic facilities, including tracks. So that, I wanted you to see that, but that design and all the specifics for the permit approval are being submitted for the last review of the permit for that. So what's the status as of today? Again, final comments requested after the last review. Basically, they had to do a narrative. We updated everything. I saw that last night. Whether it's submitted today or not, it'll be submitted next week. And then we wait. Then we wait on their 7-day turnaround. And they've been good on the 7-day turnaround. We just haven't liked what they've turned around up to this point. So we're waiting for that full approval of the permit. Having that permit in hand, to me, is similar to getting that last occupancy letter at Holy Family. When we finally got that last one, it will be a day of celebration. Once that's secured, we'll have a follow-up meeting with the neighborhood homeowners officers. One of our board members set up a meeting last spring with the president of the homeowner association, kind of gave an overview. He said it makes sense. I said what we'd like to do when we get the permit is to meet with your officers again and present to them what I call a schedule of use. And that'll be, here's the seasons, here's the reasons of when we would have lights on, so they can be aware of that. It's not going to be lit up all night. That's just not how it goes. The challenge and opportunity, though, will be when we start having Friday night football down the road. Because now you got a PA system, you got my great friend George Cullen, and the silver, where's the Dana here? The silver tongue voice. And the neighbors will get to enjoy that, Dana. They'll get to enjoy that. But we're going to follow up with them, and his last message to us was, he's talked to his officers, there's no complaints. There may be an individual homeowner or two that some people are happy when they complain. And so I don't know who that neighbor is, but we'll find, no. We'll find, no. But we want to be good neighbors for that and say, here's the reality of this, guys. That will come next. Continue to review bids from several vendors reflecting final design. The first initial bids we got were $700,000. One designer came back in and it was like 1.2 million. You're like, how did that change? So part of that was a misunderstanding of how wide and deep the trenching needs to be. Because when we run the conduit, obviously we want the electric go through there and possible additional connections. So they're revising that. We are hoping that that vendor or a couple other, Mr. Penzing and I have met with a couple other companies, that will get back closer to that range, hopefully 800,000. Met with my board of directors, talked about the project, and we have reserved funds, but we can't put that all towards this project. We have other needs in the building and other projects. So we will get to that point where we have the numbers and say, okay, who wants to step up and make this happen, push us over the line. Once a vendor's selected, they present a contract. We have to share that with Diocese of Austin. They review it. And they'll say, okay, here's the contract. How are you paying for it? Because even if they wanted to, they won't fund it. We're not going to tax anyone. We're not going to do anything for that. There'll be other projects where we need to have more of a capital campaign. Then the total cost of the project will be known then, because there might be some revisions or other things we need to do with the contract after it's reviewed. And at that time, we have the number. Currently, we have around $150,000. 48 to 50,000 has been donated in the past. It's been sitting there for years. And then again, the $100,000 was from a gentleman that I talked to 2 years ago. And he said, let me know when you get closer. And I've been in contact with him. The additional reserve funds can be used. So we have some reserve funds. We used the reserve funds to purchase the new bus 2 years ago. We have reserve funds that we've done for some other projects. But depending on what that gap is between the project cost and where we're at, that's where we have to look at that. And at that point then, we will communicate with the community about who wants to sponsor, donate towards that. Again, after the contract's signed, a project date of completion will be communicated to Savio community. Before in our conversations, and Evan, I think maybe it was like 60 days, 45 to 60 days from start to finish, because again, it's not building buildings, it's trenching, it's mapping it out there, and then they have a simple, someone comes by and checks the panel to make sure that it's been done correctly. It does not impact school. The power will be connected over on that side, so there's nothing that will be tearing up the parking lot or anything like that. Events connected to the celebration of this project and athletic contests and schedules will be promoted. Once we have that done, we then will say, no matter what season it's in, we will have a celebration, and we will crank the lights up. We'll let the neighbors know. And my friend, my paisan, Matt De Teresa, I promised him, Matt, when we have lights, I want you to be there when we flip the switch. I said, now if it's your grandkid wheeling you, hopefully before then, you can be there for that. But we do want to celebrate that, and we were talking to him before the meeting. There's some special events and things we can do. And won't it be great when our kids that have played here can come back, and if not in person, we stream something they can see that happening. Then we move on to the associated projects and priorities. Doing okay so far? All right. Thank you. You're doing great. If you fall asleep, then I know I'm lost. Envision of future athletics. So an ad hoc committee formed for other athletic facility needs. We have a facilities and grounds committee, but I'm going to have an ad hoc committee meet, a smaller group, and a smaller group that has an interest, but also they have an energy, not that they will write the checks for everything, but they will be able to tell the story to people that can help support the projects. We're going to view the additional projects, discuss, discern, and prioritize it. One of the things we've talked about is the press box. We've talked about bathrooms. We've talked about concession stand, obviously scoreboards. and some other things that go along with that. But we're going to sit down and map those out and prioritize them. Because the one that might be fourth might be first if someone says, no, I want to pay for that and make that happen. But we need to name that out and not emotionally start saying, let's do everything that we want. Let's map it out and be as specific as we can and communicate that. The communication of the plan for facility and grounds programs will be shared with Savio community. So once we have that, we will share that out. Other projects and needs, a food bus for concessions. So in lieu of a concession stand and bathrooms, we've got our porta potties. They're lovely, they're temporary. What's happening is we opened our high school and people would come here and without any supervision monitoring, they would come in, use our bathrooms and have access to the school. So we decided to go with porta potties on a temporary basis. And then the food bus is my idea. There's food trucks, but let's have a food bus. And actually the donor of $100,000, he's like, no, I'll give you that money, but let's talk about that food bus. He's really excited about a food bus, so I definitely will talk to him about that. Reserve audit list of current long-range needs, we need to look at those. I know one of the areas with a quick skimming of the audit report, it was the roof. Is more of an immediate need, but then looking at the other things from AC, flooring, and all the rest of that. Additional parking for students, parents, and guests. Would that be a good thing? That'd be a good thing. So I found a plan that it would be, so if we're facing this way, in front of the school, 2 lanes of parking for faculty, staff, visitors, and then Nina. So between that parking lot and Nina, there was a design to have another row, 2 rows of parking. So we want to revisit that and see what would that cost be, and that permitting process should probably be pretty efficient because it was kind of presented before and pre-approved. But we've got more and more kids coming, more and more kids driving, and even though they're young, the ones that have to park over there, and Father Tom has yet to charge us rental fees, but he's thinking about it. They come across, and again, whether it's Grand Friends Day or meetings like this, it'd be great to have additional parking. Then classroom space or phase 2, and I'll show you a snapshot of that about current future enrollment. And then collaboration options with Holy Family St. Vincent de Paul. And having conversation with Father Tom and kind of his master plan and long range view, looking at options, whether it's a community center or something you have there. We're gonna keep talking with them about that, because if they decide to build something for the parish community that has a stage, auditorium, or something like that, why would we build something to? So we're kind of having some proactive planning of that. There's nothing set in stone with that, but having those conversations, thinking beyond, I take care of mine, you take care of yours, you take care of yours. So, but we want to have those conversations before we move forward with anything major like that. We're almost there, guys. So I took some pictures of some food buses. We have engineers in here, some engineers, artists. So of those 4 you see there, the one on the left, it kind of looks like an ice cream truck in many ways. The top right looks like they took the windows out there and made a shelf there. Maybe took some seats out too. The one on the lower left, variation of those 2, and then one on the right. There's also other ones where you have a lift up and you have a patio. But that's a specific project that I want to throw out to our students, faculty, and staff, and have some student involvement, coming up with designs. But then it comes down to, okay, to do anything like this, what's the cost? What needs to be done? So that's why we've kept one of those old buses that were decommissioned. But that would go where we have the porta potties now. That's where we would put, if we do a long-term concession stand bathrooms, it would go around there too. Because the lighting project in the athletic fields will push closer to the sidewalk now that goes around the end of the soccer field and football field. But that's just kind of a visual of what's coming with that. And you can take a picture of this if you want, but this was the original additional phase. If you look at the top left, it says cafeteria there. At some point, at some time, people said, you know, we should have a cafeteria for our kids because they eat lunch. At both schools, but someone decided, no, let's X that out, and that's where the pavilion sits. So as we sit here today, and we're on our third vendor in 4 or 5 years of food providers, I want you to see that. Now, if you look to the right of there, and you see there's our gym and everything else, to the back part of there was discussion about possibly having classrooms there. If we decide that we want to do something like a cafeteria, that could be a logical spot, because we have room behind us. We have a big mound and everything else, but that possibly could be a spot. I want you to focus on the right side, and I've talked about this before too. If you look on top of our school, it's kind of a partial T or partial cross, I like to call it. So you've got this part and you've got the wing that goes over here. Part of the original plan was to extend over there and add on to the first floor and then have a full second floor option that would expand classrooms. We need to look at that. If you look at the middle of it, where we're at here, there's another extension there. That's an area that we talked about as a possible project to actually have a larger chapel. Boy, we get a lot out of there, and the ladies and or gentlemen that are praying every day for us, it's working. We appreciate that. But that's one of the things we've talked about. If we expanded from here out and had a chapel where it could seat 150 kids, because when I came here, it's 398, 440. I know part of the promo was talking about enrollment. We don't have exact numbers in our classes, but we're getting to the point where we're expecting each class to have 115 to 130 kids. Some classes now are larger than that, but when we get to that point, if we were to build a chapel, we don't want to build it too small, but we are also not trying to duplicate the church. So those are just some things for you to see and be aware of. So, talked about strategic plan, talked about kind of some key points there. Hopefully you heard ways, if you're interested, to meet with me or Mr. Penzick if you want to be part of committees. Hopefully you have read, or in the future will read, the updates of the strategic plan, the lighting project, and there's so many tangent things that come off of that. But the permit, the cost, and getting that done, everything else will feed off of that. And then obviously with classroom space and everything we have there. So it's an overview, it's a snapshot. It doesn't cover everything we're looking at or discussing, but the internal committee work, the conversations we're having, it will pay off for us versus stop and go conversations. And again, we want to provide the best possible experience for your sons and daughters in all areas, heart, mind, body, and soul.